On a rain-slicked Tuesday night in New York City, five shadows slipped into a luxury restaurant known only to the powerful. Their mission was simple: take down billionaire titan Julian Croft. But what they didn't know was that the most dangerous person in that room wasn't their target at all. She looked like just another waitress. Polite smile, steady hands invisible in plain sight. Yet beneath that calm surface was a past written in blood and betrayal. And when the first strike came, the night erupted into chaos that would expose secrets no one was ready to face. The Gilded Spoon wasn't just any restaurant. Tucked away on a quiet Manhattan street, it was a fortress of velvet curtains, golden chandeliers, and whispered conversations. To outsiders, it looked like elegance. To insiders, it was something far more dangerous. A place where billion-dollar deals were struck and power was traded like currency. And that's why Julian Croft came here. A man whose fortune dwarfed entire nations, Croft carried himself like a king among pawns. But for all his influence, he had enemies. Enemies willing to send in 5 of the most lethal operatives money could buy. Yet in that same room moved someone who went unnoticed. Mara, a waitress with a flawless smile gliding between tables as if born to serve. To the guests, she was invisible. To the staff, she was perfection. But behind that quiet mask lay a history no one could imagine. One that would soon make her the deadliest person in the room. The storm outside masked their arrival. 5 figures entered without a word, their movements too precise to belong to ordinary guests. No hesitation, no wasted motion. They weren't here for dinner. They were here for Julian Croft. At the center of the room, Croft raised a glass of wine, unaware of the danger closing in. His laugh echoed under the chandeliers, but the mood shifted the moment the operatives spread out like wolves circling prey. Their leader, Marco Bellini, was impossible to miss. Broad shoulders, eyes like cold steel, and the kind of presence that silenced a room. One glance at him, and you knew this was a man who never failed a mission. Guests kept sipping their drinks, too distracted by wealth and music to sense what was about to unfold. But Ara noticed. She always noticed. From behind her calm smile, she watched their formation, their subtle signals, and she knew instantly this wasn't a robbery. This was an execution. And when the first hand reached under a jacket, she decided the night would not go as planned. The air snapped like a live wire. Marco's hand dipped beneath his coat, and that was the moment Ara moved. In a blur, the polite waitress vanished. The wine bottle in her hand shattered across the skull of the nearest operative before he could even draw. Another turned, stunned, only to catch a cast-iron skillet to the jaw with bone-cracking force. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Guests screamed, glasses crashed, and the string quartet froze mid-note. But Ara didn't hesitate. Every motion was ruthless, precise, the kind of skill only someone trained in blood and shadow could display. One attacker lunged with a blade, and she slid under his arm, ripping a serving tray across his face with the speed of a hammer strike. Another aimed a pistol, but she was faster, twisting his wrist until the gun clattered to the floor before driving her elbow into his throat. In seconds, the so-called elite operatives were reduced to a pile of groaning bodies on polished marble. And yet, in the middle of the wreckage, Marco Bellini stood unfazed, watching her like a predator meeting another predator. The real fight was only just beginning. For the first time that night, Marco smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind a wolf gives before it tears into prey. He drew his weapon with a smooth, deliberate motion, the black steel gleaming under the chandeliers. "Impressive," he muttered, his voice calm, almost amused. "But you're not walking out of here." Ara's chest rose and fell steadily, her eyes locked on his. No fear, just calculation. She shifted her weight, every muscle coiled like a spring. Around them, guests cowered under tables, too terrified to breathe. Then it exploded. Marco lunged first, his strike fast, lethal. But Ara wasn't there. She moved with lightning precision, sidestepping, countering, every motion sharp and controlled. His fists were sledgehammers, hers were scalpels, cutting, exact, deadly. A feint with a chair leg, a shattered glass turned into a blade, a kick that rattled bone. Neither gave ground. It was predator against predator, each testing the other, each refusing to fall. Then Ara saw it, her opening. Marco's eyes flicked just for a split second to the broken mirror behind her. That was all she needed. With a sudden twist, she sent him crashing into the jagged shards, driving the fight into brutal, bloody chaos. And in that instant, the balance of power shifted. The clash ended as suddenly as it began. Marco lay sprawled across the shattered marble, blood streaking his face, his chest rising in shallow, broken breaths. For the first time in years, the undefeated mercenary had been brought down, not by an army, but by a woman who just minutes earlier was pouring wine. The room fell silent. Guests peeked from under tables, their disbelief painted across pale faces. And in the center of it all, Ara stood perfectly still, chest heaving, her hands curled into fists that trembled not with fear, but with focus. Marco coughed, dragging himself up on one elbow. You're no waitress, he spat. But Ara didn't answer. Her eyes weren't on him anymore, because something else had caught her attention. Croft's leather briefcase lay half open on the table, jostled in the chaos. Inside, a flash drive glowed beneath the dim light, marked with a single crimson emblem, a phoenix. Ara froze. That symbol wasn't just familiar, it was personal. The Phoenix Drive, a name whispered only in the darkest corners of her past. Information so dangerous it could topple governments, erase fortunes, and expose every hidden hand that pulled the world's strings. And seeing it here, in Croft's possession, was a revelation she never expected. The night's mission wasn't just about survival anymore. It had just turned into something far more dangerous. Julian Croft finally rose from his chair, calm, composed, almost amused, as though the carnage around him was nothing more than dinner theater. He adjusted his cufflinks, his eyes never leaving Ara. "You move like someone I used to know," he said smoothly. "Tell me who trained you. Or should I say, who abandoned you?" The words hit harder than any punch. Ara's jaw tightened, her gaze flicking back to the Phoenix Drive, because she knew exactly what he meant. The Phoenix wasn't just data, it was connected to him, the mentor who had vanished from her life, the one who had forged her into what she was. Thorne Croft saw the recognition in her eyes and smiled like a man who just won a game of chess. Yes, Thorne's secrets live here. Every betrayal, every alliance, every dollar funneled through the shadows. And now it belongs to me, Ara's pulse hammered. This wasn't a mission anymore, it was a choice. Take the drive and vanish into the night, or confront the man who now held the keys to her past and her future. Croft stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Work for me, Ara. You've just proved what you're capable of. With you at my side, no one can touch me, or you can try to walk out of here alone, hunted by every enemy this drive exposes." The weight of the decision pressed in. One path meant power, answers, and a dangerous alliance. The other meant war against forces too vast to fight alone. And for the first time that night, Ara hesitated. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder outside. Ara's eyes stayed locked on the Phoenix Drive, her reflection flickering in the polished surface. A lifetime of scars and secrets led her to this moment, and she knew there was no walking away unchanged. Finally, she slipped the drive into her pocket. Croft raised a brow, but before he could speak, she cut him off. "I'll work with you," she said, her voice low, steady, but on my terms. "I'm no one's pawn. Not yours, not Thorne's, not anyone's." For the first time, Croft's confident mask cracked into something else, respect. He gave a single nod as though sealing an unspoken deal between predators. Around them, the restaurant staff began to emerge from hiding, their world forever shifted by what they had witnessed. Ara glanced once at Marco, still groaning on the floor, then turned back to Croft. She had just stepped into a new war, one fought in shadows and secrets, and she knew it was only the beginning. As she walked toward the exit, thunder rolled again, shaking the windows. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside Ara, something even more dangerous had been unleashed, because behind the mask of a waitress, a new empire had just been born.